This is my guest, Elizabeth Turner. We're going to talk about waiting on the Lord.
I think that's not the question you should be asking. God wants everyone to get married. No. So I think it's more important than focus on just being a wife is focusing on like how to be more like Jesus.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Freedom Podcast. My name is Isabella Cameron, and this is my guest, Elizabeth Turner.
Hi.
And today, we're going to talk about waiting on the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little background, Elizabeth and I have been friends for a couple years now.
Mm-hmm.
And she is someone that I very highly respect and trust
Thank
and value everything that you say to me.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But we're going to start with, it was going to be a silly icebreaker question, but then this question came to me and I think that it's better. So it's not a silly one, but it's still an icebreaker.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. What are you looking forward to most in heaven?
Oh, man. I think, well, obviously heaven will be so much different with like relationships because obviously marriage doesn't exist and so many things don't exist. But I think I know enough people now in heaven, which has been like a whole process of learning how to grieve on earth, but being able to celebrate their eternal life in heaven with them. I think I'm really excited about that. And I also, in my heaven, there's like this crazy library that has all the knowledge ever.
Ooh.
Because why not? And like, I also think about like the Library of Alexandria and how it burned to the ground and all those things.
Yeah.
That's my Roman Empire. So I think about that a lot. And I think that in heaven, they got those first a dish.
That's
and
cool.
I just want to read that stuff. I just want to know all the things. And like being able to talk to like all the old prophets and stuff and like walk with them. And I imagine I'm allowed to like rent a prophet and like go on a walk and like talk. And like Jesus, obviously God and all
Elijah,
that.
I got you for the
But
day.
seriously, like I want to like learn.
I
think from like my nerdiness, I think learning like all the stories of the Bible as they actually were without like having them written down. Obviously it's truth.
Right.
But like the experience of that.
Right.
I don't know. So seeing people I love, even though I don't know if in heaven I will care. You know what I mean? Like I think I'll recognize them. I don't know if I'll care. Sorry, that's a whole other probably thing. Well, I don't know. Like we're all just be brothers and sisters. No, I touched it. I touched the thing.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. But and then learning and rent a prophet.
Rent a prophet. Do you ever think about like, man, I can't wait till I get to heaven and ask God like what that's about? Like giraffes. Why? Why'd you do that?
Platypuses? Platypi?
Yeah. Blobfish?
I like blobfish. I think they're kind of cute.
Really?
Yeah, they're cute.
I think my mom used to say that that's how you know God has a sense of humor because he's like, that's funny and made it.
Yeah.
It is funny.
Yeah, I have questions. They don't have to do with giraffes, though.
Oh, okay.
Like, who gave you the right? No, I'm just kidding. 2023? What was that, dude? What was that about? Just kidding.
What's going on?
Just kidding. No, yeah, I guess I think about just, I don't know, heaven. I don't think about heaven that much.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's bad.
I mean, it's not supposed to be the focus.
It's not like a carrot for me, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to live this life so I can have my mansion and the pearly gates.
And my crown.
And my crown. And my crown.
And my crown.
No, I just don't think about heaven very much. I think about the people I know in heaven a lot.
Yeah.
And being able to talk to like old dead people. Spurgeon. Bonhoeffer. Lewis. Yeah.
Oh, I would love to talk to C.S. Lewis.
Milton. I want to talk to all of them.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. And get signed copies of their books. For my heaven library, which is definitely real.
Right.
And going to exist.
Right.
So.
And you can bake things.
And I can bake things in heaven.
That'd
I
be
can
awesome.
be an angel muffin mommy. In heaven. And I can't wait. It's my true calling.
It's the true calling.
Lord, it better not be. It better be something else. No, yeah. I don't know. I don't think about heaven that much. That's actually interesting you talked about that. I don't think about heaven.
We can have so many dinner parties in heaven.
Oh my gosh. Good ones.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
That'll be great.
Yeah, I'm excited about dinner parties in heaven. I'll make spaghetti.
Spaghetti
From San Marzano
Marzano?
Marzano tomatoes.
You made it more Italian.
Marzani. I just feel the least Italian in this room, which I am. So I feel like I need to overcompensate. I realized I was too far away. Yeah, I'm going to
Just
do
the hands.
this a lot.
Yeah.
That's not real. People don't do that in
No,
Italy.
they do. I've seen it. In real life.
Polish culture is my culture, and there really isn't. It's like cold and pierogies
Yeah, that's kind of
and
it.
sauerkraut, which I'm like down.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not like fun, I guess. Is that bad?
I don't know.
The Poles are going to come for me.
Italians don't like Polish people. You know, that's like their thing. Like the Polish are the butt of every joke.
Hate.
Isn't it? I asked my dad one time, I was like, why is that? And he was like, I don't know. It just is.
So you and your family talk smack about me. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yep. But apparently the Polish hate us too.
We're having Elizabeth on the podcast. That Polak over there. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, cool. Do you think about heaven a lot?
No, not really.
What's your favorite part? What are you excited about to see in heaven?
Just no more bad things. Like the fullness of what I'm able to experience with God now and all the good I can experience now, like imagining that without all of the gross. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be pretty nice.
Like it's all positive, no negative, you know?
Because it's all him.
Right.
And
all good.
Nothing of anything else.
Right.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Crazy.
So on actual topic. Okay, I think we should start by defining what waiting on God is. So if you had to define it, what would your definition be?
I don't think there's an answer to that question. I think it's a bad question. Okay. I just don't think it's a good question. I'd rather you pick a different one. That question confuses me.
Yeah.
A lot.
That was the point.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're laying down, home slice. Don't worry about it. And I would say I think that's not the question you should be asking.
Okay. So that's kind of what I came to too.
Yeah.
In my time with God last night, that wasn't supposed to be about this. Like I was obviously going to pray about today and then just do my like normal devotional. And then it ended up being about waiting on God. So why don't we talk about instead what waiting on God should be, even though the waiting on God is a Christianese term. It's not necessarily biblical.
No.
And that's kind of what I came to in my research.
My research.
Yeah. It's actually like not there.
No. Yeah.
Actually.
I think there's like if you look at the life of Jesus, like are we just going to assume like his life before his ministry started was like nothing time? Or was he being made into the person he was supposed to be? So like I guess you could say that was waiting, and like his time in the wilderness and his time of temptation. Like what I guess there's like these little pockets. You could be like, I was waiting. But that's never I think a term that is used in the Bible.
Right.
I think he went to his mountain to pray. That was a purposeful thing that he was told to do. That was obedience. I think he went and, was obedient to go into the desert and then was tempted by the enemy. And, like, that was an obedient thing to do. So I don't know if waiting on the Lord's a thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hot take. I don't think. And that term, well, that's why I'm here.
Right.
It's because we got into it and I think I yelled loudly, which is common. Of just like I just think that's just such a stupid thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I think that's a human made, I don't know, expectation, or basically it's saying like God is telling me what to do, but I'm kind of ignoring him so I can do whatever I want.
Right.
Because I'm not getting the answers that I want.
Right.
And I think I fundamentally disagree with that.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it.
Well then,
It makes me irate.
Just
kidding.
I'm going to tell you kind of the conclusion that I came to, and then tell me your thoughts.
Okay. I can't wait.
So, I was doing my devotional last night, and
Jackie Hill.
Love. The best.
Love her.
And it was on hope. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I mean, I've researched hope before, but she referenced Isaiah 40:31. And it's, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not be faint. And I was reading it, and I was like, I'm feeling weak and weary. Like, the last couple of days have just been kind of beaten down a little bit. And it's not for any, like, I don't even know if there was, like, a pinpointed reason. Just kind of everything felt hard.
Life happens.
Life happens.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not loving this feeling right now.
Weird.
Crazy. So then I was like, okay, well, what if hoping in the Lord renews strength and it helps me not be weak and weary, then what does hoping look like, And pretty much every verse talks about rejoicing in hope. Like they're always paired together is joy and hope. And Hoping is having an eternal mindset, like on things that are eternal and heavenly and things that last. And it's not like an emotion, it's a mindset, which I've researched this before and I was like, yeah. But then I was looking up other verses on hope and I was like, well, let me just see what else is out there,
Out there. Yeah.
And Psalm 31:24 says, be strong and let your heart take courage, all who hope in the Lord. And then I was like, I feel like I've heard that before, but I remember it sounding different. So I looked at like compared translations, and half of the translations have the word hope and half of them have wait. And so it's be strong and let your heart take courage, all who wait for the Lord. And I was like, okay. So if wait and hope are the same thing in this verse, I wonder if they're the same in other verses. Turns out it's the exact same in Isaiah 40:31. Still, so it can be, but those who wait on the Lord or those who hope in the Lord. So if they're the same, interchangeable words that people can't, like it's either or based on the way they translate it, then is hoping in the Lord also not waiting on the Lord? And so if waiting on God is hope, then like, how can you say I'm just in my waiting season? Like, I'm just doing
like
nothing.
It's drab,
right? Like it's dull, mundane, terrible, weak, weary.
Yeah,
when
a valley.
you're supposed, like when you are waiting on the Lord, you should be hoping, which is active, and it's like it's delighting, it's meditating on Scripture, it's refocusing your mindset. And it just kind of shook me a little bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are like the two verses that I always hear when people say, I'm waiting on the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's not talking about physically waiting. It's talking about hoping. Like you're waiting for eternity. And you're waiting to see the fullness of God's plan for your life, but being active in the here and now.
Well, and I also think, I was thinking about this story, and I don't know where anything's referenced, so don't ask me. But like when Jesus was talking about the parable of like a good servant, like keeping the lamps lit and waiting at the door for his master to come home. Yeah. And I think like was the point that we're all just like waiting kind of like for the kingdom of heaven, but also like expectation always.
Right.
And I think the life of faith is having constant expectation of like what the Lord is going to do, what he's going to show you, like constantly waiting, I guess. But like that's the life of faith. So you're waiting all the time. Right. Because you're hoping all the time. Because you're living in expectation all the time. Those are not allotted to little, I'm so sorry, little pockets.
Right.
I'm cool, I'm chill. Like allotted to those little pockets where we're just not getting what we want. Like we're supposed to be living in expectation of the Lord returning, but then also what he's going to give and show and take away and all those things all the time.
And also enjoying contentment, not like, oh, I hate it right now. Like this is my dull era.
That's my beef, dude.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I was talking to Caden about all of my stuff last night, and he was like, oh my gosh, I actually read a passage about that today. And I was like,
what is it in?
No way. 1 Peter 3 through 9. Ready?
Ready.
Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith and the salvation of your souls. And I feel like that is what hope and joy should look like.
Yeah.
Like, when you're in the here and the now, you can look forward to see what God has already won for you. Like he's paid the price for you and you've accepted it. And that's what you have to look forward to and keep your eyes focused on the cross. But in the here and the now, are you rejoicing? Are you joyful in your sufferings that produce endurance and character and then hope?
Love that.
You know what I mean?
Romans,
baby.
Good stuff.
It just kind of all mushes together.
It does. Weird how the Bible does that. It's crazy.
Crazy. It's almost like it's alive and breathing.
And it's hard. I just heard you.
Crazy.
It's almost like it's alive and great. Yeah, I think that's I have a lot of beef with that. Like, because we talked about, I have a unique life experience to where like now that I'm not married anymore, having had that relationship and having experienced everything, which I feel like is like, because I think with women where it's like, I'm in my in-between. It's like most of the time, like I'm single and I'm pissed. Like that's kind of like the gist. And you're like, okay. Because God wants everyone to get married. No, that's not real. We said that. That's not something God said. We said that because for reasons. And and I hear you and I see you. I hear you and I see you. And it's great. But I think that there's other things that are really important. So like being able to have that weight of expectation that like some of it the church, some of it me, some of it like familial stuff of like my job is to get married, have babies, all that stuff. Being on the other side of that and really seeing like that should never have been such a focus and such a pull and such a goal in my life. And like how I was like, oh, this single time is just that in between.
Right.
And it was not. That's bologna ham sandwich. That's not real.
Yeah.
And so like the fullness and closeness that I have with the Lord now, because like when you're married, you ought to be dedicated to like your spouse and the things and the stability of that home. But like singleness is more effective for the kingdom of God. And I don't think that's kind of talked about. Yeah. And it's kind of looked down on. And so people are like, oh, that really, are you waiting for your Boaz? No, I'm really not. Because I think it's just considered, I think again for young Christian women, like, oh, that's your season of wait. That's like the primary thing I hear it in relation to. Yeah. And I want to just say this, we have bigger things to worry about.
Yeah.
So many bigger things.
Than you being single.
Than being a single Pringle ready to mingle.
Right.
There's other things.
Yeah.
And like, it's really hard to empathize now. But like I do, because I get it. But I think like there are other things that the Lord wants to teach. And there's other things that like we need to focus on than just becoming a marriable person. Mm-hmm. That's like not a high priority. Yeah. To me. That sounds bad, but it's just not. Yeah. To do things for that end, because I think that gets in the way of the Lord. Mm-hmm. I was talking about this for a reason, and I can't remember why I was talking about it.
Well, just the Christianese waiting. Yeah. Well, and I feel like we talked about this yesterday, but I've heard in youth groups and young adult groups and all these things that for the girls, for the girlies, yeah. Your goal is to become the Proverbs 31 woman, to be the ready to be the perfect wife. That was bars, by the way. I'm excited for you to talk about this because it was really good. That was good. Okay, here's how I feel about this. Tell me how you feel about it. So, for personal history, when I was 18, my parents had told us for a few years at this point, but instead of doing New Year's resolutions as a family, my dad asked us all to pray and ask God what he wanted us to focus on that year. And then to find someone, either them, my parents, or another like older, wiser Christian to go over it with and be in prayer with and bounce it off of. So that year, when I was 18, I was praying over 2020, and I felt like God told me to study Proverbs 31 because he was going to prepare me for a relationship. And I had been praying for a relationship. Like, this wasn't like, oh my goodness, like, really? Me? No. Me? Like, I had been praying for it. Crazy. But that whole year beforehand was probably, since being saved, the most work I had done in a year on just being a servant of the Lord. 18. I was freshly 18. So most of that year I was 17. That was the year I got saved, actually. It's time to put a ring on it, Lord. And I was like, God, please, can I have a man now? And he was like, no, it's not your time. Like for that whole year. And I was still prepared for that. Like to hear like, no, you're like waiting, but like, I want you to be mine right now, you know? So I'd been hearing that in my prayers for a long time. And then when God told me he wanted me to read Proverbs 31 over 2020, and memorize it, I told my parents, because I was like, maybe I'm just thinking about this. Maybe I just want this to be true, whatever. So I told my mom and I prayed about it with her. And she was like, actually, you know, when I was praying for you, I felt the same thing. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. So it was confirmation too. But that was the first year that I even studied Proverbs 31 because God asked me to. And I do think that if you're engaged, that's a good thing to study. If you're married, it's a good thing to study. However, that is like one of 2 passages, maybe 3, on how to be a wife. And there are
that many.
This many.
Roughly that many.
The whole Bible.
About being a child of God.
Yes. Yeah. About being a kingdom citizen. And yes, Proverbs 31 is great and it's wonderful and it's helped me a lot. But comparatively to all of the things that I have studied that God has asked me to study outside of that, it's just a tiny portion. Like I've learned so much about how to just be a child of God from all the other things that I've studied in the Bible too. And I don't think that like being the perfect wife or learning how to submit and all of these things is more important than all of the other things God has asked me to be as a human.
Well, and I think like because typically wifehood sometimes comes after Christianhood. But like I also think identities are really important. So like being like a kingdom dweller or whatever you want to call it. I really
kingdom
don't call
citizen.
that. A Christian.
Yes.
Like is the most important thing about me. Like that's what I believe. Like what I think about God and what I believe about God is the most important thing about me. And then everything else, like being a woman, being a Polish person. Sorry. And then like being a wife and being a friend, all those things come secondary. Right. So like I think being a good wife is a lifelong pursuit. Like you're not going to be Proverbs 31 in like 5 seconds. You're not going to do like one summer 6-week study and be like, done. Never going to don those doorsteps again. I've figured it out. And it's like, that's not how that works.
No.
At all. But I also think it's more important than focus on just being a wife is focusing on like how to be more like Jesus. And like being a wife, you will get so close. Even if you never read Proverbs 31, which you should. But even if you don't, you'll get so close to being that organically just by being more like Jesus to everyone and not just to your spouse. Now, obviously, the spouse relationship is like unique and different and especially infuriating for a multitude of reasons, but also the most beautiful relationship we have on the planet. So it's all hard and complicated. But I think like, why aren't we just focusing on just being like Jesus?
Right.
I know that sounds really base, but I also feel like that's the whole point of faith. That's the whole walk of the whole thing. Right. Is to do that. And then we needle out like, well, if you're a lady, you really should start getting prepared to wife up. And it's like, well, being a wife is not for every person. Right. And do we talk about that? No. Because it's not just how to be a godly woman. Yeah. We don't talk about that. It's a wife, always. Right. And that's not for everybody. We don't talk about that. No. It's not.
Let's talk about why marriage shouldn't be the goal.
I like how we weren't going to talk about marriage.
Here we are.
We're like, we can't, that's the one thing we're not going to discuss, but it's fine.
Well, okay. There's so many jokes about this on the internet where it's all these Christian women get married and it's like their anniversary post and they're like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done and I hate my husband, but it's also beautiful. And I like, I don't want to be that. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But marriage is hard.
It's the hardest thing you've ever done. It's 100%. And
it's really hard. It
was always going to be 100% every day.
I have never had to.
In the face of ricotta cheese, you die to self.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's a mirror to my own faults.
Yes.
I see so much faster my own selfishness, my 100%. Own greed, my own pride, so much faster. And I'm not a huge fan of that personally.
Crazy.
I actually don't like seeing my faults.
Most people are. That's so weird.
I kind of hate it.
Yeah, so strange.
But marriage is difficult and you do have to be devoted to a person. Clearly, not more than God. God is still number one, but that happens all the time.
A lot of the time. I did it.
Spouse idolatry is real.
Boo. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not good.
And it ruins everything.
Everything.
Yeah. That's the point that I was going back to. That's actually great. Is like, so we talk about the season of waiting, like single Pringle. Oh, gosh. Golly gee. I don't want to be in a relationship. Cool. Well, then you get one. Okay. It's not all freaking cupcakes and rainbows. It's not like fun 100% of the time. Right. Like, sure, you get to ride all the rides if you get my gist, but like also you can get a little seasick. Okay, things can happen. And it's like, it's not like it's beautiful. Shut up. It's beautiful. Okay? It's beautiful. It is freaking die to self work. Humble. Lord, like if you don't make me a new person today, I'm probably going to murder someone tomorrow. Like it's a whole thing. It's really hard. And I don't think we're spending so much time, not we, because we're different. No, me, literally, in high school. But, like, spending so much time, like, belly aching about the Lord not giving us what we think we're owed. Truly, that's what it is. I'm owed this because I've done the things, and I go to church sometimes, and, like, look at me, I'm so cute. Like, I'm owed a spouse. we have so much time bellaking about that we're not actually preparing to be in the thing at all. We're not prepared to be in the thing. And like, people also aren't honest about the thing. People are not honest about like what it is like to be intimate with your spouse for the first time if you've waited for marriage, and how you've been guilted for your whole life, and then all of a sudden you're like, you're not perfect at this? That's so weird. And everyone's like, we don't talk about that because it's inappropriate. Who's gonna talk about that with the young little baby Christians who are so inundated with shame? Mostly women, but lots of men, or men who have like never seen a real live naked person. I'm sorry if we're going in a direction you don't want to go, and have only ever seen fake naked people, and they're like, well, this was not what I ordered. And it's like, it's a real woman actually that is what you ordered. That's actually what that looks like in real life, and it's so weird. I know the angles aren't right, but like, you really have to figure that out. Like, but that's a real problem. Yeah. No one's talking about that because it's inappropriate. I don't believe in that. I think it's dumb. Yeah. So it's dumb. And so people aren't prepared to be married. Yeah. And I think that's a disservice. Like, I've never been more of an advocate, I think, you can tell me, or like cared more about biblical holy marriage than I do now after having experienced hardship in marriage. I'm such an advocate. I believe in it more. Yeah. But I also believe you need to prepare. And like, really, when the Lord says to wait to get into a relationship, that's a beautiful, loving thing. That's not him like dangling a carrot in front of you, and maybe you're not supposed to be in one. So sorry. Yeah. But like, you can be fully satisfied in who the Lord is. You can. You really can. It's a real thing.
Well, I feel like I've heard from men like, well, you know, Paul never married, so if you're single the rest of your life, that's fine. But I don't often hear that for women. Yeah. I only ever have really heard that for men.
There's not really an example in the Bible, and I think that's probably why. I mean, there's speculation about Mary Magdalene. There's like 8 Marys. I get confused. The ones that he threw the demons out of. Yeah, Mary Magdalene. Like, that she was just like single Pringle forever. But we don't know. One of the questions I'll ask when I rent a prophet. True. I talk to him.
Okay. So I do feel like being in the Bible Belt, we've had a little bit of church hurt. Crazy.
Me? Who?
We.
Me?
Women? Yeah. Girls?
Yes, sis, probably.
Yeah. So it's obviously biblical that women are to teach women, which is good and amazing and beautiful.
Oh, do you want to talk to me about this? Is that what we're talking about?
No. Okay. But
okay, so you want to fight on set? Okay, we can. Let's do it. No,
we can fight right now.
I'm just kidding.
What do you think? I guess it just comes back to discipleship, but like, ideally in a church setting, what do you think it should look like for women to be teaching women, and the types of conversations and the types of women that we do put in leadership over other women? Because I've only ever seen married women teaching married or unmarried women. Anyway, what are your
I think
thoughts?
that's malarkey. I think it's baloney. That's what I think. Well, because I think it prolongs the stereotype of like, well, you're not fully baked in your Christian faith until you've married. Like, you can't, you're a loose cannon out there because you might be hoeing. I don't know what they think you're doing. I don't know. I really don't know. But that's I've experienced some of that where they're like, gotta have a ring on it. Or we need to know the ins and outs of your marriage. And like, I do believe if you're teaching on marriage, like, things should be probably pretty okay. Like, right. Like, it's never going to be like kumbaya.
Perfect.
Right. Because it's life. Right. So there's like elements of that, like depending on what you're teaching and mentoring and who you're discipling, like that I think is really important. And that was a conversation we had because like we kind of have mentorish friendship vibes. Yes. And I was like, hey, huge advocate. Yay, rah, rah. Love marriage. But like, there are aspects that I probably shouldn't speak into. And we kind of talked about that. Yeah. But there's also things I can't speak into because I was married. But there's also things that like now I think you having a currently married older woman in your life, like she should be that person. So I think if you have spiritual maturity, and like I think a lot of it comes down to not wanting to hurt people's feelings, but I think it's a damaging thing to only allow women who are married or even of a certain age. Like, I think spiritual maturity happens at a lot of different levels. So I don't think you should have a 15-year-old, even if they're really mature, like teaching a class. Yeah. But I also think like the kingdom of God is made up of so many diverse things. And like, if someone feels called, like followers, if someone feels called to lead a group, they're mature, and you're teaching mature young women how to be children of God. The full Bible, not just the 3 verses that have to do with procreation and marriage.
Yeah.
Like, then you're going to have people who are listening to the Lord and who want to lead on the things that he wants to lead them in. So you can let them do their thing. But I don't think you should only let freaking married people do that.
Right.
Because it's like, what's the example the Bible has set for womanhood? No. It's not, actually. And that's okay. I get that. I get the stability of marriage.
Yeah.
For people who are married, I think that's really important. But I think you need single, powerful women of God teaching in the church. And they should not be discriminated against.
Right.
And that happens sometimes.
Right.
I think it's bad.
Well,
Boo. I think it's bad. What was your question? I forgot it. I'm not going to lie to you.
I don't remember.
Okay, cool. Oh, discipleship.
Yeah.
That's something I'm really passionate about, actually. If I were to do a ministry today, which I'm not, definitely not, but if I did do a ministry today, it would be to, like, discipleship on a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 basis. I know that's, like, bonkers crazy, should be mandatory in church.
Yeah.
The fact that it is not blows my mind. The people who slip through the cracks, like, or go to, like, a 30-person small group or community group or whatever, like, once every 2 weeks. And, like, half of it screaming toddlers and half of it. And, like, it's all, like, weird. No one knows where to draw the lines, like, married, single, whatever. And, like, I believe in all those groups of people should be getting together. But if you don't have women in your life, I think for women it should be women, for men it should be men, for the most part. Like, mentoring, I think it's diverse. Like, I have men who have spoken into my life. But, like, day to day, shoulder to shoulder, I think it should be the same gender as you. Personally, controversial hot take. I said gender. Sorry, we should cut that. We should cut that up. I think it should be someone who's older and wiser than you, who can be 2 steps ahead. And I think it should be a agreed upon actual discipleship relationship. Not this, like, oh, friendship, but, like, you have sought it out. And if I say to you, the Lord and I were talking about you, and this is something I think you should do, like, you will do that. That is so biblical, like accountability. Right. And, like, actually bending your own will to that mentor who you trust, who's following the Lord and, like, interceding on your behalf. Like, that is not, formal discipleship is so not a thing anymore. Right. And it needs to be a thing. Yeah. Because we need accountability. I lost my mentor, and I've been a loose cannon. It's a problem. It's a problem. Because I'm just like, yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm fine. Not fine. No. Not fine. No. And that's because, like, someone's not looking me eye to eye on a weekly basis and, like, knows my soul enough to be able to tell me who I'll listen to. That's the other thing.
You have to be a willing participant.
You have to be a willing participant. So I think discipleship for every human being, male or female, is so important. A child of God thing. Yeah. And, like, the way that the church does it, which is that they kind of don't. Or you have to be like, we all know, like, the popular church kids. They're like, oh, he's whatever. And, like, he wants to be a pastor one day, so he's getting mentored by the whatever. And you're like, cool, but we're all children of God. We should all be mentored. We all need mentors. Right. I'm a huge advocate for mentor-mentee relationships. That's, like, real.
Yes. It's also so special to know that there's someone who's, like, actively praying for you outside of your spouse or your parents or your best friends. Like, the first time that you had told me when we were getting coffee and you were like, hey, I was praying for you this morning and God told me this, and I was like, what?
Shut up.
You were talking to God about me? That's crazy.
Well, and we talked about, like, I mentored lots of people, and then for a season of time, for a good reason, I was like, this is not the time for that. Right. And, like, you were the first person, Lord, like, where I was like, okay, God, like, I don't think now is the time. And I think he was really loving and really sweet. I didn't tell you this.
What?
But this is what he said to me. Okay. Because I was like, Lord, like, I'm trash. I truly, I was like, I'm not in a good spot. Like, I should not be mentoring people. I'm trash from Trash Island. I shouldn't be doing it. And he was like, it's not, they're not going to look at the way that you live your life only. They're also going to look at the way you come back to me. And I said, okay, all right, cool. And I was like, which has happened now. Yes. Yeah. Oops. And
but it's true.
But it's true. And, like, the way that I think you return to faith, if you get my gist, which is, like, come back into, like, authority and alignment with the Lord, is just as important. And, like, that's vulnerable for me to show. And I think that's important for you to see and for me to be honest about. I was like, yeah, I made some bad calls, dude. I made some bad calls, and I was not being who I ought to have been. but I want to come back anyway. But like,
well, I feel like that gave me more respect for you
yeah,
than if you had never taken a step out of alignment. Right. And like, that's unattainable and perfect and I'll never be there.
Yeah.
But for you to like make a mistake and then be like, yeah, it's because I wasn't in full alignment with God. But now that I am, I know that it was a mistake. It just makes so much more sense to me and gives me more respect for you for stepping back in. Yeah. And then it's a better example for me. Because there are plenty of times that I'm like, oh, I'm going to just step out the line.
You're welcome.
Sorry, let me get back.
Well, and that's like a huge thing of like true discipleship is living life together. Like disciples is like picking up the dust of their master's feet, right? So like pick up my dust, I guess.
Yeah, I'll follow you around the bakery.
But like following so closely, like, you know, it's not like I have shame about my dirty laundry if you come to my house, which hasn't happened, but one day it will. And like, it's living life together to that level. To where it's like, I can't lie to you. Like, I couldn't lie to you and be like, peachy.
Everything is just great.
Fine. But when the Lord told me, like, no, like, I really do feel like this is that. And I was like, okay. It was something I prayed over. And, like, it's a responsibility, and it ought to be. Like, not that I'm like, oh, my gosh, I need to, like, because that was a huge maturity thing of, like, okay, if I give you advice and you're like, deuces, I'm not going to do it. I don't carry that. I grieve, but I don't carry. And that's a maturity I think you have to have if you're going to mentor somebody. Yeah.
I love that sentence. I grieve, but I don't carry.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Thank you. Patented. Patent pending. No, but like I used to be the biggest, because I'm a 1. Sorry. Enneagram 1. And it's a disease.
It's a curse.
It's an actual disease and it's a problem. And I used to like be in people's lives trying to do the Lord's will. And they'd be like, I didn't do what you said. And I said, I just want to flip tables and throw things at their head. Because I was like, dude, I told you the 12-step program. Why couldn't you just follow the 12-step program? But like God wasn't a part of that. It was me. And I was like putting God label on it and being like, I mean, God said that you should do X, Y, and Z and clean up your act, girlfriend. And then they wouldn't, and they'd be livid. And I'd be like, well, our relationship is ruined. You don't respect me. And like, that's not what that is. That's just them being a fallen and broken person. And so we've talked about like how I operate with underchurched or like, and I think that's like people who don't believe in God. Like, and some of them are dear friends to me. I have a lot of diversity in my portfolio. And I think the reason that like I can watch them, it grieves me sometimes when they're making decisions over and over and over again that I was like, is rooted out of brokenness, is rooted out of trying to fill a hole that is God-shaped. I know, like, what that is. But I also know that, like, loving them is a command. And, like, I want to honor them in the way that I can. And so that's, like, a hard line to toe sometimes. But, like, when I give advice and it's, like, whether I say it or not is divine inspired. Like, it always is. I'm praying during that moment. You don't know that. Juked ya. It's happening. Like, it doesn't weigh me down anymore if someone doesn't follow it. Or if they're like, no, I tried whatever again, and it made me feel worse. I was like, oh, that's crazy. And I'm really sorry. And I can really empathize. And be like, yeah, that's really hard. Like, it's so disappointing when the things that you seek out in the world, like, don't satisfy. Because I've done that so much. Yeah. And I understand exactly how that feels. And so there's not even judgment. I don't feel that that's my job to do. Like,
right.
I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to love you and like truly love you. Not like in this condescending, like pat, you're like a little lost sheep. Like, no, I really love you and I really have been there. And I don't have to carry their decisions or bad decisions or whatever they do. I can just love them. And I was not always that way.
Yeah.
Because I would be like, oh, so you decided to be an idiot again. Weird. That's really weird that things didn't work out. Oh.
Well, you didn't do exactly what I told you to do.
Are you going to complain about it? Oh, yeah, it was terrible. It was actually terrible. And that's why I'm a reformed Enneagram 1. I'm working on it.
Reformed Enneagram 1.
I'm going to find a different number. I want to get rid of it. It's so bad.
Just don't identify anymore.
I don't. I won't.
I refuse.
I'm all the numbers.
Oh.
No. Oh. I mean, that's the goal, no? That's what Jesus is.
I saw a post and it was like, what Enneagram do you think Jesus was? And I was like, this is not good. This is wrong. This is wrong.
And he was all the numbers, so it's whatever.
He was the perfect.
You know what? I don't care.
He was a 10.
Oh my gosh. That was actually really funny. You're telling me Jesus was a perfect 10?
Jesus was a perfect 10.
I'm going down under for that one. I don't remember.
Discipleship.
Discipleship is important to me. Yes. I think if I could, like, Elizabeth, what's your calling?
What's your gift?
I think Well, yeah.
That's different.
I think discipleship is what I'm called to do.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple beans at a time. Yeah. That's what I think I'm supposed to do with my whole life. That's what I've been doing. Trying.
So let me ask you a question.
You
You touched on this a little bit, but you're in discipleship type relationships with Christians.
Yep.
And me and non-Christians, like non-believers. So in discipleship relationships, obviously you're called to love them both, non-Christian and Christian. But what does accountability and advice giving look like for the Christian versus the non-Christian disciple? Why did I feel
I don't know. It's okay.
Mentee. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Disciple-y?
My brain has been combining words all day, so
Cool.
I can't wait to listen to this back and really regret
Just regret.
half the things that
No
I said.
regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets.
So what's the difference in accountability?
Like speaking accountability and advice into someone's life.
Right.
Yeah.
There's lots of differences. I think like the heart posture behind it, honestly, is the same. Like they're good. But when you define good as two very, very different things, I think it can be confusing. But like, if we're talking and you're talking about some stuff, like because we read the same books and follow the same God, there's a different level of accountability. It's a lot higher, obviously, because I know the laws you're supposed to adhere to. Like, I know. And it's also my privilege and my responsibility to be like, hey, you just cussed out some homeless people. I don't think that's okay.
I haven't actually done that, I promise.
Yeah, that's not happened. Not in front of me, at least. But so like, I know the law that you're trying to adhere to, that you're saying you adhere to. And so that gives me a lot more license, a lot more freedom, and a lot more accountability, and a lot more things. And also like, if I'm like, hey, like I prayed about this, and this is what I feel like the Lord is telling me, like that holds weight for you. Right. And that's a big deal. I think like when giving advice for other people who are not a part of faith, like I can always talk from my own experience, which is always usually faith-based, but that's not what I try to do. I'm not like trying to like shove Jesus in there at every possible opportunity. But like, if they're like, well, what would you have done? I'd be like, well, this is what I would do. And then it usually goes to, well, why would you have done that? And I was like, well, because this is what I believe. And also this is like the person of character and integrity that I want to be. And that's 99% of the time how it goes. But also just like, I just want to love them. Like, and I'm their friend. So when they're like, oh, I really don't know, like, I had a boy over and he spent the night and like, I felt really weird about it or whatever. And it was like not, and they're trying to like talk to me. I'm like, yeah, like I've done those things. So I just, for me, it's like, yeah, like I totally like relate to that feeling. I'm just really thankful to like not have those experiences. But I also, I've been there. So there really is no pretending, I guess, like to empathize and to be like, yeah, that really sucks. Like, I hear you and I see you. But advice is just like, it's just like human good advice. Have you eaten a snack? You should take a nap today. Like, I don't think it was kind the way that you talked to that person. And also just like with my personal, this has been happening a lot lately of like people have been running into like my personal boundaries, like just how I operate in the world. And those are the same. So it's like, oh, Elizabeth, can I, and this again, I'm 12 people involved. It was all handled well and like friendship and love and yay. But like, I'm going to do an edible at your house. No, I don't do drugs in my house. No one does drugs in my house. That's just not a thing you're going to do. Love you. Go do that elsewhere. I don't need that here. And like literally the conversation was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I really apologize. And like, those are moments where I think it's like, oh yeah, you're on a different wavelength than I am. And it's like, yeah. And it's not even like oh my gosh, you're going to go do drugs. Wow. That's great. No, I genuinely like can disengage from that outcome and be like, you're not a child of God. And
you're
that's
like
okay.
an adult.
And you're a grown up. And I was like, and I love you. And I would, I wouldn't pick that for you. Like we've had so many conversations. I wouldn't pick that for you, but that's okay. And I don't love you any less. But I don't operate with that in my space. Right. Like, don't smoke before I come over. Don't do it while I'm there. Like, I have no interest in spending time with you in an altered state. So that's like a personal boundary that the people who need to know that you don't need to know that because that's never been a thing that you partake in that I know of. No, I'm just kidding. Is that a bond? No, I'm kidding. So it just, relationships just look different. There's certain conversations we've never had to have.
Right.
Because like, I know that you don't play with that stuff. And there's other conversations with other people that I have had to have that have to do with my personal boundary. I don't know if that at all answers your question. It's just different. Like the motivation is the same. The love is the same. The friendship is genuine and true in both cases. You have a higher calling and a higher accountability. Like I have more of a right to speak into your life about these things.
Right.
And it can get nitty gritty. It's not even like you cuss out a homeless person. It could be like, hey, like you haven't gone to church in 2 weeks. And like that usually is indicative of like you getting stale and stagnant and angry about something. Like, let's talk about that. The tone in which you talk to your husband, like all of those things, which like, if I talked to that about, it would just like, yeah, I don't think you should do that. But like my why would be pretty weak. I'm like, well, it's me, you know? And like, so it's hard.
Right.
But love is universal. So like talking to somebody in love, like we can have the same conversation in love. It might be about different things, but then I can turn around and have the same conversation with somebody else. It's a loving conversation. I want them to succeed and be good and be well, and I enjoy them.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a big beef too. I got a lot of big beefs. Beef. With like...
She's got a freezer with steak in the back. Big beefs. Sorry. I'll cut that out.
That was a bad joke. She got a big freezer.
I was thinking of like my mom's dream would be having like owning a fifth
cow?
of, yeah.
We should share a cow. I would actually love that.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I need to take you to this won't.
Pause.
There's this place in
We're close anyways.
okay. Okay, Elizabeth, what's your beef?
Oh, yeah.
That's where we left off.
Oh, yeah, my beef, one of my many beefs, is like this bologna ham sandwich of like Christian people condescendingly being friends with non-Christians and being like, they're just not in touch with wisdom, but like, I still like them as a person. I hate you. I hate that. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like the table that we all dine at, okay? Like that Jesus dined at freaking was full of so many people of so many diverse backgrounds who either had tons of interest in the Lord or had no interest in him whatsoever. They were attracted to how he treated people, how he carried himself. That is a basis for real friendship. Maybe not like, again, like my Brianna, like my soul friend, like my David and Jonathan friend. David?
Yeah.
Daniel.
David.
I've read the Bible. And I like, that's like a soul connection of like, she sharpens me, I sharpen her. And like, for me, it's that soul level who understands me on every facet, faith included. That's important to me. It's a pillar of who I am. That does not mean I cannot have heartfelt, intentional, meaningful connections with people who are not Christian. And like that, it's really off-putting to me and also to the person you're friends with when you're a condescending boob all the time. They're like, oh, have we tried faith? It's a little bit better. They know. Like if you're living your life, like they know. And I want to live a life where people know they can ask me questions and they see the way that I live and it brings curiosity and we can talk about faith still. But like there's not an underlying judgment of like your life would be better if only. Like that's a clanging gong. It talks about that in scripture. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that's loving. Yeah. And like obviously those lines are hard to toe sometimes more than others. But like this condescending baloney of like I'm blessing you with my friendship. But like, okay, like be friends with people who are different than you, who have different opinions than you, who challenge you in different ways. Because I think it teaches you how to be a more well-rounded human being and a more well-rounded Kirsten. Sorry. Hey, Kirsten. Christian. Hey, BFF. In so many different ways.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think that's talked about. I think you have to be in a stable place. Obviously, if like you used to smoke weed all the time and like all these other things and slept around and all the things. And well, not really. Not the weed. Done everything else. But like, and then are like, my life has changed. I want to be different. Hanging out with those people who are doing that all the time isn't wise to do. Like immediately after, maybe you need a couple years of like there's a separation from friendship where it's like really hard for you. But I also have had friends who have laid down those things for my benefit and have been like, no, like I want you in my life. So I'm not going to partake in those things around you or invite you to anything where that happens, but we can still have our friendship. They've done that for me. And I've, done that for other people. Like I don't drink around people who don't drink.
Right.
And so I think it's the same. And I think there's a way to navigate it towards still loving and fulfilling. And not have to be like fake.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just like, I just want you to be blessed by my presence. Ew.
That's gross.
It's so gross. And they can feel it, and that's not real.
Yeah.
So many beautiful, important people in my life are not Christians. And, like, I think there's always going to be a grief, and it's not a condescending grief, but, like, in my opinion, like, do I want more for them in their life? Of course I do. But that also doesn't diminish the life that they're living or how much I love them or how much I care about them. And I think that, like, pitying crap is honestly what keeps people away from church more than brings people in. Hot take.
Well, if your actual, like, truly heartfelt goal is to love them the way Jesus did and let that speak for itself and let the Holy Spirit save them, it shouldn't come off as condescending.
Whoa. Crazy.
So maybe your intention isn't
Well, and that
right.
whole thing, girl, if I invite you to church, the first question, what do I wear? Oh my gosh, what do I wear? Because they don't want to be judged by people. That is really the thing. And like, should you come to church with your tits out? Not if you're a Christian. Don't think that's a great idea. I don't care.
Yeah.
I will fight for you. Sorry, that was going to come off weird. I don't think that should be the first thing. Lost people are going to act lost.
Right.
Why do we expect them to do anything different than that? Like, yeah, they're not going to come in with a rosary and, like, their moo-moo. But, like, maybe they're coming to church and, like, that's a really cool thing. And we should leave them the heck alone about it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop the toxicity of that. I think that's dumb. Lost people act lost. We should stop being surprised by that. And, like, scandalized by their humanity. I think that's dumb.
Yeah.
I think it's stupid. They're not held to that standard. And so it's dumb for you to do that. You're carrying that. You shouldn't carry it. It's not a weight you're supposed to have.
Right.
It's a way God can carry. You don't have to deal with it. Dumb. Yeah, I just think it's stupid. I just think it's stupid. That's all. But I think it's also incredibly unloving and condescending. And I think the church has a lot of healing that needs to happen because the church no longer feels like a hospital for the sick.
Yeah.
It feels like a pageant for the holy. And I think that that's dumb. And that was never what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I've had people not want me to be in leadership because I have a nose ring and tattoos because I don't look right. Like, and that's like, well, clearly stupid. But it's like also like I love the Lord. Like you talk to me about Jesus. Like I know things about him. And that's like me. I'm like a Christian and people do that still.
Yeah.
That was like 5 seconds ago. So like the discrimination against non-believers because they act and look like non-believers, I think
That's silly.
stupid. I think it's dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry I said the S word. I think it's really silly.
I think it's really silly.
And it should stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my beef. One of many.
One of my many beefs.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, well, I'm going to break it right here because Elizabeth, we're going to do a part 2. Because there's more beefs.
There's more beefs. There's so many more. I have an unlimited supply.
So, as a little preview for next time, or what we're about to talk about, but you will see in 2 weeks. So I have to break this up. Is we're basically just going to talk about what resting looks like when you're in a dull, mundane season or whatever you deem is dull and mundane.
Oh, there it is.
And then instead of us just saying like, oh, you just need to hope, you just need to have joy, you just need to have peace. What does that actually look like?
Yeah.
Like, what does that actually look like day to day? What are things that you can do in your life to help?
Because we definitely have all the answers.
No, we have it all figured out.
We've got it all figured out.
I've never had a bad day in my life.
Never, not once. And I've always
Not
done
me
what the
this
Lord wanted me to
morning.
do. And I've never not. And I'm perfect. So
No, literally not me before the cameras rolled where I was like, I think I'm this close to having a mental breakdown today. This is great. Cool.
Yeah.
So all of those things will be talked about on the next one. Cool. And all the Bible verses we've already talked about will be in the description. Elizabeth is not on social media, so you can't find her, but you can try.
You won't find
her.
You'll find my 4 Instagram accounts I used to book tattoos and then get locked out of and then have to make another one. That's what you'll find, baby.
That's what you'll find.
You can try.
Elizabeth, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
And we'll be back next time.
Yeah. Let's be
Bye.
done.